My daughter screamed, "Pay the rent or get out." But a week later, I sold the house. And my name is Maddie, and I am 62 years old, a retired nurse from Sacramento, California. I raised my daughter Amanda alone after my husband died when she was just 8. We were once so close, but over the past few years, things have changed between us. When I retired, Amanda invited me to move in with her and her husband due to my financial concerns. Never did I imagine she would one day stand in front of me, face twisted with anger, demanding I pay rent or leave. The shock of that betrayal still stings. If you are watching this video, let me know where you are from. In the comments, hit like and subscribe to follow my journey of finding strength when family turns their back on you. I spent most of my adult life in hospital corridors working as a dedicated nurse, often taking double shifts to make sure Amanda had everything she needed. My husband, Tom, was the love of my life. We met in college, married young, and had Amanda when I was 31. Our life was simple but happy, until that terrible morning when Tom collapsed in our kitchen from a sudden heart attack. The doctor said it was a congenital condition nobody knew about. Just like that, at 39, I became a widow, with an 8-year-old daughter to raise. I had to make difficult choices after Tom died. Our savings were modest, and the life insurance barely covered the funeral and some outstanding debts. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, working nights, weekends, holidays, anything to make sure Amanda never felt the financial strain of being from a single-parent household. My personal life took a back seat. Friends would invite me out, and occasionally colleagues tried to set me up on dates, but I always declined. Every free moment I had belonged to Amanda. I wanted to be both mother and father to her. Looking back, perhaps I overcompensated, but I was determined she would not feel deprived of anything. Amanda was a bright child, always curious and loving. She did well in school and had many friends. Even from an early age, though, I noticed her fascination with material things. While other children her age might beg for toys or candy, Amanda would point out designer clothes in magazines or ask for expensive electronic gadgets. I often could not afford these things, but I tried my best to give her what I could, sometimes working extra shifts just to see her smile on Christmas morning. During her high school years, Amanda and I were incredibly close. We would spend evenings at the kitchen table going over her homework, discussing her day, planning for her future. She was determined to attend a prestigious university, and I supported her dreams wholeheartedly. We spent countless hours researching colleges, filling out applications, and writing essays together. All those extra shifts paid off when Amanda was accepted to Berkeley with a partial scholarship. I had been saving since she was born for her education, and though it would leave my own retirement fund thinner than advised, I promised her I would cover the remaining tuition. The look of joy on her face when she got that acceptance letter made every sacrifice worthwhile. It was during her college years that I first noticed our relationship beginning to shift. Amanda made new friends, many from wealthy families. When she came home for breaks that first year, she talked endlessly about their vacation homes, luxury cars, and international travels. I listened with interest. Happy she was expanding her horizons, though I noticed she began to look around our modest home with new eyes. The second year, the calls became less frequent. When she did call, she would often cut our conversations short. Small red flags appeared, but I dismissed them as normal growing pains, the natural separation between a mother and daughter. Our first major argument happened during her junior year when Amanda called to tell me she would not be coming home for Christmas. Her roommate had invited her to Aspen for a ski vacation with her family. I tried to hide my disappointment, but when I suggested we could celebrate before she left, she said she would be too busy with finals and packing. That was the first Christmas I spent alone, looking at the small tree I had decorated with the handmade ornaments Amanda had created as a child. As I sat alone that Christmas, I began to worry that the values I had tried so hard to instill in Amanda of family compassion and appreciating what you have were being replaced by something I did not recognize. After graduation, Amanda moved to San Francisco for a high-paying marketing job at a tech company. She was brilliant at what she did and quickly climbed the corporate ladder. Each time we spoke, she seemed to have received another promotion or bonus. While I was proud of her success, I noticed that her calls mostly centered around her material acquisitions, a designer bag she had purchased, the exclusive restaurants she frequented, or the luxury apartment she had moved into. Our relationship continued to grow more distant. Whereas we once talked several times a week, we now went weeks without communication. My calls often went to voicemail, and when Amanda did call back, she seemed distracted, frequently mentioning she only had a few minutes to talk. About 3 years after her move to San Francisco, Amanda met Jason at a corporate event. He came from a wealthy family and worked as a real estate developer. Their courtship was quick, and within a year they were engaged. Jason seemed nice enough during our brief meetings, though he often checked his phone when I spoke and asked few questions about my life or background. Their wedding was an elaborate affair at a vineyard in Napa Valley. As mother of the bride, I spent months saving for a nice dress for the occasion, but when I arrived, I felt immediately out of place. The other guests wore designer clothes and expensive jewelry. During the reception, I overheard someone refer to me as the nurse, rather than Amanda's mother. I spent much of the evening alone at my table watching Amanda shine in a world that felt increasingly foreign to me. After the honeymoon, Amanda and Jason bought a luxury home in an exclusive neighborhood north of the city. The first time I visited, I was overwhelmed by its size and opulence: 6 bedrooms for just the two of them, a home theater wine cellar, and a pool with a view of the bay. Amanda gave me a tour, pointing out the imported Italian marble in the bathrooms and the custom cabinetry in the kitchen, speaking with the same enthusiasm she once reserved for books or ideas. Over the next few years, their materialistic lifestyle only intensified. They were constantly renovating perfectly good rooms in their house, upgrading to newer luxury cars, and taking expensive vacations to exotic locations. Amanda would send photos from these trips, always perfectly posed in beautiful settings, but somehow her smile never quite reached her eyes. During my infrequent visits, I grew increasingly uncomfortable with their values and conversations. Dinners revolved around property values, stock portfolios, or which of their friends had purchased what new luxury item. When I tried to steer discussions toward more meaningful topics, I was met with polite but disinterested responses before the conversation inevitably drifted back to material concerns. What hurt most was Amanda becoming increasingly judgmental of my simple lifestyle. She would make subtle comments about my clothes, suggesting I should treat myself to more expensive brands. She questioned why I still lived in the same small house instead of upgrading to something nicer. Once, when I mentioned a vacation I had taken to a national park, she asked why I had not chosen a resort instead, as though my choice was a failure rather than a preference. Despite the growing distance between us, my love for Amanda remained unconditional. I told myself that underneath the material trappings, she was still my daughter, the little girl who once made me handmade birthday cards and fell asleep in my arms during thunderstorms. I hoped that one day, perhaps when she had children of her own, she would remember the values I had tried to teach her. After 40 years of nursing, I retired at 60. My body was tired from decades of standing for 12-hour shifts, lifting patients, and the physical demands of hospital work. While I had managed to save some money for retirement and had my pension, my financial situation was tighter than I had hoped. The rising cost of living in Sacramento meant my modest income would need careful budgeting. After calculating my expenses, I realized I might be house poor if I remained in my home. Though it was small, and simple property taxes and maintenance costs were becoming burdensome. After much consideration, I decided to sell my home to create more financial cushion for my retirement years. I had just started looking at smaller condos and apartments when Amanda called with an unexpected offer. Mom, why are you looking at those depressing senior apartments? Jason and I have that big guest house on our property. Why not move in with us? My initial reaction was reluctance. I valued my independence and was unsure about living so close to Amanda and Jason, given the distance that had grown between us. Honey, that is very generous, but I would not want to impose on your lives. It is not an imposition, Amanda insisted. The guest house is just sitting there empty. It would be good for everyone. You could save your money and we could see each other more often. Plus, when we decide to have children, you could help with them. Though Jason seemed less enthusiastic when I spoke with him, he went along with Amanda's plans, saying, "It makes financial sense for everyone involved." There was something in his tone that made me uncomfortable, but I pushed the feeling aside, hopeful that living closer might help rebuild my relationship with my daughter. I sold my Sacramento home for $360,000, a decent profit after buying it 30 years earlier. I put most of the money into secure investments, setting aside some for living expenses. I decided not to tell Amanda or Jason about my financial situation, simply saying that the sale would help with my retirement. I had always been private about money matters, and something told me to keep my finances to myself. Moving into their guest house was initially exciting. It was a beautiful space, essentially a one-bedroom cottage with its own kitchen living area and a small garden patio. While it was on their property, it was separated from the main house by a lovely garden, offering both proximity and privacy. The first few months went remarkably well. We had family dinners several times a week, and I enjoyed helping around the property, tending to the garden, and occasionally cooking meals for all of us. Amanda seemed happy to have me nearby, often stopping by in the evenings to chat or bringing me little gifts. Jason was cordial, if somewhat distant, but I attributed that to his busy work schedule and the natural relationship between mother-in-law and son-in-law. I took great care not to intrude on their privacy, always calling, before walking over to the main house and maintaining my own active schedule with volunteer work at a local hospital and joining a book club to make new friends in the area. I thought I had found a perfect balance, close to my daughter, but still independent, financially secure, but able to help my family. Little did I know that this arrangement, which seemed so promising, would soon unravel in ways I never could have imagined. About 6 months after I moved in, I began to notice a gradual change in Amanda's attitude toward me. Her warm welcomes became shorter, her smiles seemed forced, and our family dinners became less frequent. When we did eat together, she would often make critical comments about my habits or schedule. "Mom, do you have to water the garden so early? The noise wakes us up," she complained one morning, though I had been careful to wait until 8 a.m. "I wish you would text before you come to the house, even if you see our cars are here," she said another time after I had knocked on their door to bring over some mail that had been mistakenly delivered to the guest house. Jason became more openly annoyed by my presence. Once, when I brought over a homemade casserole, I overheard him say to Amanda, "Does she have to be here all the time? I thought the guest house would keep her over there." One evening, while returning from my book club, I accidentally overheard them arguing through an open window. "Your mother has been living here rent-free for months," Jason was saying, his voice sharp with irritation. "We are basically supporting her." "What do you want me to do? Ask my own mother for rent," Amanda replied, though her tone suggested she was not entirely opposed to the idea. "Why not? That guest house would rent for at least $2,000 a month. Meanwhile, we are paying for her utilities and she is always using our stuff." I crept away before hearing Amanda's response, my heart heavy. I was careful to pay for my own utilities and had never used their things without asking. More importantly, I had only moved in at their insistence, never imagining they expected financial compensation. Amanda's coldness increased over the following weeks. She began to avoid me entirely, leaving the house early and returning late. When I texted her, responses were delayed and brief. Our once comfortable relationship had become awkward and strained. I tried to address the tension directly, waiting for an evening when Jason was out at a business dinner. Amanda, honey, is everything okay? I feel like things have been different between us lately. She brushed off my concerns without meeting my eyes. Everything is fine, Mom. Work has been stressful, that is all. If having me here is becoming a problem, I want you to be honest with me, I pressed gently. Do not be silly, she said, though her tone lacked conviction. It is fine. I just have a lot going on right now. She quickly changed the subject and made an excuse to end our conversation a few minutes later. Hoping to improve the situation, I tried to make myself more valuable around the property. I spent hours tending to their extensive gardens, prepared meals, and left them in their refrigerator with reheating instructions, and even did some light cleaning in the main house when they were at work. Far from appreciating these efforts, Amanda seemed annoyed by them. Mom, you rearranged the pantry. Now I cannot find anything, she complained after I had spent an entire afternoon organizing it. The gardener said you pulled out plants that were not weeds, Jason remarked coldly, when some of my garden work was apparently deemed incorrect. My attempts to help were clearly unwanted, yet I was increasingly being treated as a burden. I felt a growing loneliness and isolation, despite living just yards away from family. The guest house, once a cozy retreat, began to feel like a gilded cage. The final indignity came when Amanda and Jason began hosting lavish dinner parties and backyard gatherings without inviting me. I would watch through my windows as their friends arrived in luxury cars, bearing expensive wine and gifts, laughing and socializing just across the garden, while I sat alone with a book or the television for company. Not once did Amanda knock on my door to ask me to join them, not even to make a brief appearance. One particularly painful Saturday, they hosted an all-day pool party. The sounds of music, laughter, and splashing drifted through my open windows from morning until late evening. Around sunset, I decided to take a short walk around the neighborhood for some fresh air. As I passed by the main pool area, Amanda saw me and gave a stiff wave, but did not call me over or introduce me to any of their friends. I felt like a stranger, an outsider on the property where I lived, invisible to my own daughter. The confrontation that changed everything happened on a Tuesday evening in early autumn. I had spent the day volunteering at a local hospital reading to patients in the children's ward, something that always filled my heart with purpose. When I returned to the guest house, I noticed Amanda's car in the driveway earlier than usual. Thinking she might be sick, I texted to ask if she needed anything. "I am fine," came the terse reply. Despite her dismissive response, I decided to make her favorite comfort food from childhood chicken and dumplings, hoping it might bridge the growing gap between us. I spent 2 hours carefully preparing the meal, then carried it over to the main house around 6:30. I knocked on the kitchen door and entered when I heard Amanda call out. She was sitting at the island counter, still in her work clothes, a glass of wine in front of her, and a scowl on her face. "I thought you might enjoy some homemade chicken and dumplings," I said, trying to keep my tone light, as I placed the dish on the counter. "You always loved these when you had a hard day." Amanda stared at the dish, then looked up at me, her expression hardening. "I am not hungry," she said coldly. "That is okay. You can heat it up later," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment. "Rough day at work." Something in Amanda seemed to snap. She slammed her wine glass down so hard I was surprised it did not break. "Yes, Mother, I had a terrible day at work. The kind of day where the last thing I need is to come home and deal with more problems." I stepped back, stunned by her tone. "What problems? I just brought you dinner." "The problem," she said, her voice rising, "is that I am tired of supporting you while trying to build my own life." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "Supporting me, Amanda, you invited me to move in here." "Yes, and I expected you to contribute something. Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain this property? The taxes, the utilities, the maintenance? Jason and I work incredibly hard for what we have, and you have been living off us for free for almost a year." Jason walked in during her outburst, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed, watching the scene unfold without intervening. "Amanda, I never—" I began, my voice shaking. She cut me off. "Do not Amanda me. Do you know what $2,000 a month in rent would mean for our investment portfolio over time? That is what the guest house would get on the market. Instead, we get nothing while covering your utilities and watching you wander around our property like you own the place." Tears welled in my eyes. "You never mentioned rent when you invited me here. If that was your expectation, you should have said so. I sold my home because you said this arrangement was best for everyone." "Well, things change," she snapped. "And it is time you started paying your way. $2,000 a month starting next month. Pay the rent or get out." I looked to Jason, hoping for some intervention, but he simply nodded in agreement with his wife. "It is a fair market rate," he added coolly. In that moment, looking at my daughter's anger-twisted face and her husband's cold eyes, something broke inside me. This was not about money. This was about respect, about family, about the values I thought I had taught her. "I see," I said quietly, working hard to keep my composure. "If that is how you feel, I will make arrangements to leave." A flicker of surprise crossed Amanda's face, as though she had expected me to beg or negotiate. "Fine," she said, recovering quickly. "You have until the end of the month." I turned and walked out without another word, my untouched chicken and dumplings still sitting on their counter. Back in the guest house, I finally let the tears flow freely, crying, until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. How had my sweet little girl turned into this cold, materialistic woman who could treat her own mother like an unwelcome tenant? That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I would leave as Amanda demanded, but not before teaching her a valuable lesson about the true cost of treating family as a business transaction. The morning after our confrontation, I began researching my options. While Amanda and Jason were at work, I drove to meet with a real estate attorney I found with excellent reviews. I explained my situation, careful to include all details about my financial standing and the arrangements with my daughter. "Let me get this straight," the attorney, Patricia, said, after listening carefully. "You sold your house and have most of the proceeds invested. Your daughter and son-in-law invited you to live in their guest house, never mentioned rent, and are now demanding $2,000 monthly or eviction. Is that correct?" "Yes," I confirmed. "I know I have no legal right to stay if they want me gone. I am prepared to move, but I wanted to understand my options." Patricia typed some notes into her computer, then asked, "Out of curiosity, do you happen to know anything about their financial situation? The property address might help me check some public records." I provided the address and mentioned the renovations, luxury purchases, and extravagant lifestyle I had observed. Patricia spent several minutes searching through databases before looking up with raised eyebrows. "Mrs. Sullivan, this is quite interesting. Your daughter and son-in-law's house has multiple liens against it. They have taken out several large equity loans. Despite appearances, they appear to be significantly over-leveraged." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked. "It means they owe more than they should relative to the property value. They have been using their home equity to finance their lifestyle. With current interest rates, they are likely paying a fortune monthly to maintain those loans." This explained the sudden demand for rent, but Patricia's next revelation truly shocked me. The mortgage holder has actually begun preliminary foreclosure proceedings. They have missed 2 payments. This is not yet public knowledge, but it is in the system. My mind reeled. Amanda and Jason, with their luxury cars and expensive vacations, were in danger of losing their home. Yet they had tried to make me feel like a financial burden. "What are my options?" I asked again. Patricia leaned forward. Well, there is something rather unusual you could do if you wanted to. With your investment from selling your home, you actually have enough liquidity to purchase their remaining mortgage from the bank, essentially becoming their lender. I could become their landlord without them knowing, I clarified, hardly believing such a thing was possible. In a manner of speaking, yes. It is an uncommon move, but entirely legal. The bank would likely sell the mortgage at a discount, given their missed payments. You would not own the property outright, but you would have significant control over the foreclosure process. I spent the next week in careful consultation with Patricia and a financial advisor. Using $300,000 from my savings, I was able to purchase Amanda and Jason's outstanding mortgage. The bank was eager to offload the troubled loan, and given the equity already in the property, it was actually a sound investment for me. Through this process, I discovered the extent of their financial troubles. Despite Jason's real estate business and Amanda's high salary, they were drowning in debt from their extravagant lifestyle. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, and constant home improvements had left them financially vulnerable, despite their substantial income. Once the paperwork was completed, I made the hardest decision of all. I contacted a real estate agent to list the house for sale using my rights as the mortgage holder. Given the desirable neighborhood and the cosmetic improvements Amanda and Jason had made, the agent assured me we could ask a premium price. "We should be able to get at least $900,000, she said confidently. Meanwhile, I told Amanda I would be moving out immediately rather than waiting until the end of the month. "I am going to stay with my old nursing friend Barbara while I figure out my next steps," I explained, keeping my tone neutral despite the ache in my heart. Amanda barely concealed her relief. "That is probably for the best," she said. "Take whatever time you need to pack up your things." Not once did she ask where I would go afterward, or if I would be okay financially. Not once did she express concern for her 62-year-old mother suddenly without a home. I spent 2 days packing my belongings into my car and a small rented trailer. Amanda was conspicuously absent during this time, leaving early for work and returning late. When I finished, I left my key and a short note on the guest house counter, simply stating that I had vacated the property as requested. I did not mention the mortgage or my plans for the house. That revelation would come soon enough. Working with my realtor, we listed the house at an attractive price of $895,000, slightly below market value, to encourage a quick sale. As predicted, we received multiple offers within days. We accepted a cash offer of $940,000 with a 30-day escrow and no contingencies, a remarkably smooth transaction. Throughout this process, I experienced mixed emotions from vindication to deep sadness. I had never imagined taking such drastic steps against my own daughter. Yet her treatment of me had revealed a painful truth about who she had become and the values she now embraced. With my financial future now secure, I purchased a comfortable 2-bedroom condo in a pleasant retirement community 15 miles away. It featured a community garden pool and clubhouse where residents gathered for social events and activities. Within weeks, I had made several new friends, joined a walking group, and volunteered to teach a knitting class at the community center. For the first time in decades, I was building a life that centered entirely on my own needs and interests, rather than sacrificing for others. Though the circumstances were painful, I found a new sense of freedom and self-respect that had long been missing from my life. Exactly 1 month after I moved out, the new owners of the house were legally entitled to take possession. The foreclosure and sale process had been completed without Amanda and Jason's knowledge, as all notices had been sent to the property while they were at work, and I suspect they had been ignoring mail from financial institutions given their troubles. My phone rang early on a Tuesday morning. Amanda's name flashed on the screen, the first contact from her since I had left. I took a deep breath before answering. "Hello, Amanda." "Mom," her voice was shrill with panic. "Someone is trying to evict us from our house. There are papers saying we need to vacate in 3 days, and people came by to look at the property yesterday. What is happening? It has to be a scam, right? I sat down on my new sofa, looking out at the peaceful community garden through my window. It is not a scam, Amanda. The house has been sold. Sold? That is impossible. We own this house. The panic in her voice was now mixed with confusion. Actually, the bank owned most of it until I purchased your mortgage after you demanded rent from me. As the mortgage holder, I had the legal right to foreclose and sell when payments were missed. The new owners will be taking possession this Friday. There was a long silence, then a choked sound that might have been a sob. You did this. You sold our house out from under us. Why would you do something so cruel? The accusation of cruelty from the daughter who had thrown me out stung, but I kept my voice steady. I did what you taught me to do, Amanda. I treated family as a business transaction. But where are we supposed to go? She cried. We cannot find a place and move in 3 days. Mom, you have to help us. You can move back into the guest house. We do not need rent. We can go back to how things were. The desperation in her voice broke my heart, but I remained firm. No, Amanda, we cannot go back. Things changed, remember? That was what you told me when you demanded rent after inviting me to live with you. I was stressed about money, she admitted, finally revealing the truth. Jason's business has been struggling, and we were behind on the mortgage. I thought your rent could help us catch up. I should not have spoken to you that way, but we are still family. You cannot just let us become homeless. You will not be homeless, I assured her. The sale of the house cleared your debts, with enough left over for a sizable sum to be transferred to you, about $240,000 after all liens and fees. That is enough for a down payment on a more modest home or for rent while you rebuild your finances. Another long silence followed. When Amanda spoke again, her voice was smaller, more vulnerable than I had heard in years. I really messed up, did not I? Yes, I said gently. You forgot what matters most in life. It is not the fancy house or expensive clothes or what your wealthy friends think of you. It is how you treat people, especially family who loves you unconditionally. Amanda began to cry in earnest now. I do not know when I changed so much. When did I start caring more about things than people? What Jason and I did to you was terrible. Money changes people, Amanda. It can bring out the worst in us if we let it become the center of our lives. We talked for nearly an hour, the longest, most honest conversation we had had in years. Amanda admitted that she and Jason had been living well beyond their means, trapped in a cycle of trying to impress others while drowning in debt. The demand for rent had been born of desperation rather than cruelty, though the way she had treated me remained inexcusable. I set clear boundaries during our conversation. I would offer emotional support and motherly advice as she and Jason rebuilt their lives, but I would not provide additional financial assistance. They needed to learn to live within their means and rediscover what truly mattered. In the months that followed, Amanda and Jason were forced to dramatically downsize, moving into a small 3-bedroom house in a middle-class neighborhood. They sold one of their luxury cars and many of their expensive possessions. The humbling experience changed Amanda's perspective in ways I had hoped, but not fully expected. She began calling me regularly, not to complain about her reduced circumstances, but to share genuine thoughts and feelings. She asked about my volunteer work, my new friends, my knitting projects. For the first time in years, she seemed interested in my life, rather than focused solely on appearances and possessions. One Sunday afternoon, about 6 months after the sale of the house, Amanda came to visit me alone. We sat in my small but pleasant patio garden, drinking tea and watching butterflies visit the flowers I had planted. I owe you an apology, Mom, she said, setting down her cup. What I did, how I treated you after everything you sacrificed for me, it was unforgivable. Nothing between mother and daughter is unforgivable, I replied. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting or allowing myself to be mistreated again. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I respect that. I respect you, and I am so sorry it took losing everything to make me see what I had become. Our relationship has slowly healed since then. We are rebuilding trust one conversation, one honest exchange at a time. Amanda and Jason have embraced a simpler lifestyle, focusing on experiences rather than possessions. They have even started volunteering at a local food bank, something the old Amanda would never have considered. As for me, I have found peace in my new life. My retirement community provides friendship activities and purpose. I have enough financial security to travel occasionally, taking the trips I postponed for decades while raising Amanda and working. Most importantly, I have regained my self-respect by standing up for myself when it mattered most. The journey has taught me that unconditional love does not mean unconditional acceptance of mistreatment. Sometimes the greatest act of love, both for ourselves and others, is establishing firm boundaries and allowing natural consequences to occur. Life is too short and too precious to spend it with people who do not value you, even if those people are family. True family is measured not by blood or obligation, but by respect, consideration, and genuine care for one another's well-being. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took you for granted? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life lessons and experiences. Share this with someone who might need encouragement to value themselves. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, it is never too late to teach or learn important life lessons, even from the people closest to us.